Okay, so we're going to work on constructing our cylinder again. And I want to make sure that you use an ellipse. We're going to use like a squished ellipse. All right, so everybody's going to work on making a nice ellipse on their paper. It doesn't have to be perfect to start, so kind of flesh it out. And then find your ends of your ellipse, or your edges, and we're going to put two parallel lines straight down. Two vertical parallel lines straight down. And again, don't make it too big because we got to shade this, but don't make it too small where it makes it hard for you to do anything. Then we're going to look back and refer to this top ellipse. And we want to make the bottom here the same curvature as our top. So if you kind of have that feel of your pencil, you can put that down here like so. Or if you're skilled enough, you can just mimic the curve from the top. We want to have some curvature. And then once you have the building blocks of your cylinder, you can go in and fix it up, and then take your eraser, tidy it up. If you have some scratchy lines, get rid of some of the scratchy lines there, and just kind of get your confident lines that make up your cylinder. Give you a moment to do that. And if you're finished, let's put our light source middle right. So I'm going to make my light symbol here. And just for our references, I'm going to do our arrows that we've been using just so we see how light is cast to our form. Now, thinking about what we know of a rounded form, we're going to start on the opposite side of the light. And I'm actually going to rotate my paper a little bit because I told you, why don't we keep it where our arm is comfortable. So whatever your comfort level is, I like to shade a little bit where I can get my arm in the most comfortable spot. So I'm going to start at the back end, and I'm going to start light. Because I said, what did I say? If we start light, we can always do what? Get darker. So 2-3 would be great. And that's 2-3 value. So if we refer back to our rangefinder, we would be like working in this 2-3, 3-4 right here, but I prefer the 2-3, that value. So I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to work nice and light, working to get my grain out, because we don't want the grain to show up, but it might show up in the beginning. But again, we got to go back and forth over it. And as I start drawing towards the light, my pressure has to pick up. And if you look at my hand on the pencil, my hand's on about the middle spot of my pencil. It's not way down here, so I push hard. It's back here, more in the middle. So I'm picturing myself using like a feather. And I'm just going back and forth over the surface, really light right now, because we're going to go back and work darker later. And I'm going to about the midway point. And I'm going to slowly stop here because I'm not going to be able to get pretty much any lighter with an HB pencil. And I'm using an HB right now. So I'm going to have to switch over to my harder pencil, which is my 2H, and get rid of my HB. And I'm going to switch over now. And I'm going to, again, hold about the middle of my pencil. Really just touching the surface lightly. And we said that if we need to use our finger, we're going to try not to, but if we need to, there's a finger that we might want to think about using over another. And does anybody remember which one that is?
The pinky.
Pinky, right. And we're going to have to take that pinky and use the back side of it. But before we do, rub it on your pants or something just to make sure there's no oil or some of the oil is moved off it. And I'm just going to lightly push on this edge because it's really hard to get that 1-2 value without using a little bit of help from your pinky. And once I've done that, just going to now go back in. I'm going to use that figure 8 motion as well in here just to try to get out some of the grain that I had here. And I'm going to go over again. We talked about shading is just repetition of the pencil going back and forth to work out the grain. And we use that 3-4 pressure because we said we can always go back in and get darker. So we know that back here is probably, it's not going to be 7 because 7's reserved for the cast shadow, but this is probably going to be a 5-6. So now I'm going to start going in. I'm going to push a little bit harder. So I'm going to move down on my pencil a bit, and I'm really going to start to work that back edge opposite the light. And I want to make sure I don't get any grainy look or banding or striping. I want to make sure that I gradually blend the values together. And again, I can't emphasize enough about getting your hand in a comfortable position. It makes it a lot easier when it's in a comfortable position. And again, I showed you that figure 8 motion that could be helpful for some of you if you're getting a little bit too much grain, if you don't like going like the vertical and the horizontal. And it's very hard to go horizontal, because if we go horizontal across this form when it's in its upright position, you run the risk of flattening it out. So that's why you've seen me working vertically up and down, and then I work like that figure 8 motion. And again, I'm trying to get any striping or banding out. I don't want that to show up. And while we're shading, I'm going to refer you to the top of this form because this has, we said, a flat plane. And we're going to look at that in a moment as soon as we finish up our edge here. If I were to look at my top of my cylinder, I'm going to notice that the light is down over here in the middle and it's passing through. So it would probably lead me to believe that this is going to be a dark value. So what you can do is you can come up here and you can push a little harder and start to darken the top of your form. And I can loosen it up or lighten it up as I get closer to the light, but not too much because it's still kind of blocked out. And again, gradated value, gradual value change. You'll start to get a form that's looking like this. And again, you're going to have an opportunity to spend more time than I would right now. I'm just kind of showing you how it looks and how it works. You'll go back in and really fine-tune this here. I did want to show you something here and talk about the bottom of a form. So what I'd like you to do is put your pencil down for a second. I'd like you to take your 2 fingers and put them out in front of you like so. And what I want you to do is I want you to watch what happens when they move close to each other and then they touch. So when they move close to each other and they touch, a shadow is created, and you see like a dark line between the 2 fingers. That same principle kind of applies here. You have a form that's sitting on top of a surface, and we want to acknowledge that by a little shadow. So I just kind of put a little darker line at the bottom of here. Not an outline, but I guess we have to call it an outline, but it's more of like a little shadow where the 2 objects meet, the ground and the object. So you can do that like so. And if you got to clean anything up a little bit, go for it. But this is our basics of shading a cylinder. What I'm going to ask that you guys do, like before, is go in and make 4 or 5 cylinders and shade them, add value to them. All right. And you'll submit this for your cylinder demo. So again, cylinder is nothing more than different ellipses followed by parallel lines drop down and mimicking the top plane with the bottom plane, and we get a couple different looks. I will tell you that if you're below a cylinder, I'll just show you this real quick, it's reversed. Your line here look something like this, because you're looking up at it, and then you would have the surface that it's sitting on. So you see this bend the reverse way here when you're looking, your eye is looking up at it in that direction. So just a little something to remember when you're doing cylinders. So you're going to work on doing 4 or 5 of those, and you'll submit those for cylinder work.